It's another beautiful autumn afternoon in northern Tasmania. Thank you so much for joining me. This is now episode 49, which means the next one is episode 50. And I find that almost impossible to believe. But here we are, and I'll have to think of something special to do for the 50th episode. Thank you so much for your support, also and your encouragement via your comments. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. I appreciate this all more than I can say. So I look forward to sharing with you what's been happening this week. I take you foraging with me. I show you some projects which I've begun or that are continuous, and I hope it inspires your creativity also. After a break of maybe 2 months, I had a day of eco-printing this week, and I really enjoyed it. I really don't know why I've left it so long. Anyway, I did a combination of papers, as you see here. I've also done some fabric. The papers I used were some that I have used before and I knew how they would work, and others that I haven't. So these are thin card, which I have done before, and they always give good results, and it depends what I put in them, what results I get. This time I used a combination of eucalyptus leaves and onion skins, and I wrapped them either around rustic cans or copper pipe. And there are variations, you can tell which ones were in what. This one I would say was nearer some iron because it's got some darker areas. This one looks more like it might have been around the copper pipe. And the leaves are very different on paper to what they do on fabric, and then it also depends on the fabric, of course. And again, they are reversible, which makes it great for journal pages. And if you've been watching what I've been doing, you'll know that I've started another journal, and also my past journals, which I completed this year, feature eco-printed papers. The other kind of paper that I tried for the first time is silk paper. I had never heard of this. I stumbled upon it when I was searching online for some information about making silk paper, and I found out that you can actually buy art paper that has silk fibres in it. So I bought a small pack just to see how they would work. and the results are really interesting. Again, this is eucalyptus leaves and onion skins wrapped around either copper pipe or rusty cans. The back is kind of pearlescent. So I'm suspecting that a bit like the photo printing paper that I did a while ago, this may have a cellulose component on the back. So this is the front, and that's a smooth but slightly textured side. Really happy with that. I did some larger sheets also, and again the leaves have printed really well, and you can see onion skins here as well. I laid these in between layers of fabric, so you will see the effect that's had on the fabric as well. I dipped these all in tea also beforehand for a tannin dip. I saved my tea bags from drinking black tea, and I used them to make a strong tannin mix, and then later on I dry them and I empty them and use the papers for my collage. This one I'm especially happy with. It is beautiful. This one was closer to a rustic can, so it got quite dark in the background, and it's made a dark outline around the eucalyptus leaves, and I just love that. I love that effect. So this may end up being, say, on a cover or something like that, because that one is a bit special. You can see that the water droplets got trapped in there and made prints as well, sort of like bubbles. So an interesting effect, and definitely will be useful in my journal making in particular. I have a variety of very large aluminium pans. The one that I used for this eco-printing session is, I think, 20 litres. It's slightly smaller than my big 25-litre pan, which I did measure. So let's say a 20-litre pan. I had 4 bundles in it, and I got all these results. It's actually 13 pieces of fabric, plus the 8 sheets of paper that I showed you. So that's very good value, low on energy and low on water, because you're using the one energy source and the one lot of water for the process. These are all rolled onto cardboard tubes that I saved from things like baking paper, foil, and so on. And after I've ironed them, I roll them up like this so that they don't get creased. And that's really helpful when you're traveling, say, to an event or a market, and also when you have to store them. It means you don't have to iron them again, which is really lovely. So I have here some very old damask tablecloth, some vintage silk, which I think is also from a tablecloth because it was hemmed, and some vintage wool blanket. I'm going to start with the silk. This is really lovely silk. It has a pattern kind of woven into it of birds and leaves and deer and all sorts of things. It's just really lovely, and you have to look closely to see it. Here we have some of the string lines, and the reason there's a line down the middle is because I folded it in half to fit it around the bundle. So it's not mirror image because I had other layers in between as well, not just leaves, but I really like how this turned out. It's quite subtle. And then I'll turn it over, and this is the other side. So you can see more like an art cloth surface rather than distinctive leaves. So you've got different kinds of visual textures on it with hints of leaves, the string lines, the marks from onion skins, and the iron content. And I really like that. It's great for using in textile art and all sorts of things. I tend to make my things the width of my pipes or the rusty cans, and I might do 2 end to end if it will fit in the pot, or maybe sometimes 3 or 4 if I'm using a really big pot, such as my big old laundry boiler. And this again has similar results to the other piece I showed you. So it has the iron content from the Rustic cans, and then the leaves and some shades of dark colour on the edges because of the water in the pan, which started off clear but becomes dark from the Rustic cans. And then the back, and then we have this other one which is quite a bit darker, and you can see that I've had a strip of paper here, and it's because it was dipped in tea, it's worked a bit like a tannin blanket. And I think I may have dipped this piece of silk in tea as well. I dipped one piece in tea to see what would happen. Otherwise I only dipped the papers in tea, and the silk and the wool were soaked in vinegar and water. These are shorter strips. This one's a little bit wider, and again both sides are interesting. The leaves that I use I think are 3 varieties: Eucalyptus regnans, Eucalyptus viminalis, and Eucalyptus bruckeranii. So you can see the string lines here and another outline from the papers. So just really lovely results, and the silk feels so beautiful. The vintage damask, being a cellulose fabric, I think it's cotton, was much paler, and I didn't do an iron dip this time, which I usually do when I do linen or cotton, for example. I just did a tea dip, and there's enough iron and tannin in them to make them so they won't wash out. And you can see the leaves here with a little bit of an outline, and the shape of the piece of paper that was sitting on top of it. And then as I unroll it, it gets paler. And then if I pull it back, you'll see the back, and that's also got some really lovely prints. And then here we have something more subtle on this piece of damask. And I just love this fabric. It's lovely old fabric, beautiful to stitch through also. And last but not least, the vintage wool blanket. Vintage wool blanket is just so responsive to the eco printing process. This was a very, very pale pinky beige colour, and the eucalyptus that grows on our property just prints beautifully, and I get these lovely red orange colours. So really, really rewarding to work with, and they grow just outside our house. And I know many of the people that watch this don't have access to eucalyptus, but I would say don't be envious. Just use what you've got around where you live, because you would have things growing that I can't access. And the fun part of it is experimenting to see what you can do. And I just love using what's around me. I want to represent where I live in my work. So this is very dramatic. It's got marks here from the Rustic can, and you can see some string lines which have made like a border here. Just beautiful. And then on the other side, it's really, really dark. So this would have been on the outside of the can. And again, beautiful patterns from the string lines, and the contrast with the orangey red is just lovely. You can tell I love this, can't you? And then the other side, this is a darker piece, and you can even see the leaves along with the string lines and the Rustic can mark there. And this one has a darker background, but it still has the hints of yellow from the onion skins, and you can see where I've had a piece of paper sitting there as well. So it might be something for you to try if you do like eco printing. Layer several things together, such as paper and cloth. Dip some in tannin, and use tea bags, and then the others can have the vinegar water soak, which is about 1/5 vinegar to water, and I generally only do it for about an hour, and put them together and see what happens, because they work with each other, which is really great. I've now started the May section of the Coverlet of Comfort, which is a year-long project that I'm doing with Kathryn Chambers of K3N Cloth Tales. And I'm just loving being part of it. There's a Facebook group as well, so you have a sense of community too, because you're part of a group as well as following the same prompts, even though we're all being very individual in how we approach them. And the prompt for this month was to do an animal or something like that that is special to you. So Kathryn chose to do 2 of her pets, but interpreting them as characters that you see in Cancer embroidery. And the idea is to do Cancer style embroidery, but to put our own spin on it as well and make it so that it's applying to us as unique and individual people. I decided I would do the birds that we see around our home. And one of the ones that's just started to appear because winter is on its way is a scarlet robin. We have several different kinds of robin, but the scarlet robin is the one that's been visiting us regularly. And he comes and gets the insects off the cobwebs around the doors and the windows if I haven't swept them off. And I don't like to sweep them off now because I know it's a food source for the robins and other little birds. What I did was I drew freehand the shape of each bird that I'm using. I used a reference book of Tasmanian birds so that I would get them reasonably accurate, but I didn't want to just photocopy it and use it like that. I wanted to do my own interpretation. So it's been inspired by a book that we have about Tasmanian birds. And when I drew it, I cut it out because I wanted to be able to sew it onto the cloth. So that's the piece that was left. And then I outlined it just with a running stitch. But to get the other details, and some of them I haven't added yet, I actually cut the piece up that I used as the template so I could get the other shapes. So for example, I wanted to have a kind of a wing shape here, and I'd played with it a bit. I didn't quite do it the way that I'd drawn it, and that way it seemed to work better. So I ended up putting that piece there and this piece sort of there, but I changed it. So you can take artistic license. You don't actually have to follow it exactly because I felt that it looked better the way I ended up doing it. He has quite dramatic changes of colour. So he has a very red breast. This is the male, of course. Then he has some white and then he has some black. And his tail also has black and white. And his head is black with a touch of white on his forehead. I wasn't sure how I was going to approach that or whether I would even actually include it. So I thought, well, I'll just wait and see and do the other ones while I'm thinking about it. And the prompt for this week was to actually use running stitch to fill in sections of the creature that you've chosen. So that's given me ideas on how I can actually make it look a bit more like a robin. I'm quite happy with it just being an outline, but because the rest of the coverlet is very intensively stitched, I thought it would be good to, do a similar approach to this, not the same, but still have lots of stitching on it, which I love to do anyway. The background is wool, very thin wool and quite loosely woven that I've eco-printed. And this is a piece of sari silk. So I bought rolls of sari silk offcuts from the Thread Studio in Western Australia. I often mention them because I belong to their Facebook group called On the Veranda, and there are often specials there if you're in that group. So I wait until they're offered at a good price and then I buy them. And what I did to reinforce it, because this wool was quite loosely woven, I ironed on some very lightweight fusible interfacing onto the back, just to make it a bit firmer and not go out of shape so easily, but also it's still really good to stitch through. If I used a heavier interfacing, it would have been too hard to stitch through, and it needs to be an enjoyable process. Then on top, just to give a bit of contrast, I used fusible web when I attached the silk sari offcut. But I did use the fusible without the paper backing because it has a softer hand and it makes it easier to stitch through, especially once I start adding more layers. So I used a similar approach with the next bird. This one is a brown falcon, and we usually hear them more than we see them actually. And this one shows the bird with his wings down. So when they fly, of course, their wings go up and down, and the wings are down. So there's a hint of the wing on his right side, which is hidden by his body, and then the left wing is shown. And again, I used the outline to trace it, the outline that I drew, pinned it on, and it was still in one piece then. I pinned it on, and then I stitched all around it with running stitch, and then I had the general shape. And then to get lines like that, I cut it apart and used this as my guide. This is another piece of sari silk, and I attached that with Misty Fuse also, and it has the interfacing on the back. I use very tiny buttons for the eyes, and I'm really happy with that. And I used the brown sari ribbon because the brown falcon is, of course, brown. The next one I haven't started yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think it might be my favourite. And that's this owl. It's called a bubuk owl. And we have one that calls often in the evening, sort of dusk, early evening. And it has a sound that sounds a bit like mopoke. And it's just a soft call. And I really love it. So I thought I must include a bubuk owl on my next block. So I'll do the same thing. I will cut it out, just the outline, pin it onto my background, which has another piece of sari silk fused onto it, pin it on, and then stitch it around with the running stitch. And then once I've done that, I will cut it up to get the wing line, and maybe this line here, the beak, this line, although I could probably do that one freehand, just as I need it to add the details. It's still minimal detail. I didn't want it to be too complex. And if I'm going to do it with running stitch as a filler to give the colours, it needs to be reasonably simple. And I'll probably use buttons again for the eyes also. So that's the plan for the next part of the Coverlet of Comfort. And then we're going to join them together at some point to make another section of our project. I also have another square just in case I wanted to do another bird, because it was very hard to decide which ones were my favourites because I love them all. So we'll see what happens, and I'll share updates regularly as we go along. One of the things I try to do is to not waste anything. Within reason, of course. I'm not a hoarder, but if I can see that something will be useful, I will save it. And if I have had it for a while and it's not been used, I'll move it on. But I have saved these for quite a long time. These represent projects from probably the last 5 to 7 years. And that was from a three-dimensional piece of textile art that I did. And that's one of the few pieces that's left over now. And others are all left from journal covers that I've made over the years. And I knew that they would be useful. Some of them were quite large pieces. So what I did was I joined some of them together. So this was a piece about this big, Then I added this bit, and then I added a piece at the bottom, and I had to join 2 pieces to make that long enough. So now I have a new journal cover, and all of these are more than 15 centimetres deep because the little journals that I like to use measure 15 centimetres, and I need just that little bit extra to make the covers. I may need to add a little bit more to the sides to make the flaps that fold in, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. So I've got the structure, basic structure for the journal covers done, ready for when these little journals arrive. And these will be available for sale, but not until after my open studio in June. So they'll be available at the open studio, and then I'll put them online after that if they haven't sold. They do sell well, so it's possible that they won't make it to my online shop, but of course I'll be making more journal covers. So I've done 3. That's the first one. Everything is eco-dyed or printed, and this is the second. So I had a piece that long there, and then I joined 2 pieces up for this one. So that was one piece, and that was another one. And they were all machine done, and I used to do big pieces of fabric fused to a thin wadding, stitch all over it, add lace and all sorts of things, and then cut it up for the journal covers. So with the leftovers, I'm just joining them back together again, really, but in a different way. This is the last one, and I'm thinking I might add something to this. I'll just reach across and get it. So I think possibly I will add that to it, either by hand or by machine, I'm not really sure. So that's another project that's waiting for me to attend to, and they won't take long because it'll all be machine done. Sometimes I add hand-stitched embellishments as well, but I don't know if I will to these because it's already got a lot going on. Oh, and I didn't mention these 2 pieces here have been needle felted, so they were covers that were needle felted. I think I called them Earthscape. There's one still left available online. So needle felted and then machine stitched. So I'll let you know how they go and share them again soon. This is another year-long project that I'm involved with. It involves making circles and putting them in a journal. So I've made my journal. I embellished it not long ago, which I shared about in a video a few episodes back. And we're now just on to week 20, I think. So I've done through to week 19. That's going to be the title page. I'm thinking about how I'm going to do the rest of it, but this was a spare circle from week 18, which I'll show you in a minute. And that's just cardboard from an old art pad, I think, and some eco-printed paper, and then stitching. So I'll just find the pages that I've done. This is the other one of the one you've seen on the title page, and I've mounted it on a piece of cotton interlock, which I stabilised with a little bit of iron-on interfacing, and then I've adhered all the layers together with double-sided tape. So that was week 18, and I did enjoy that. It was supposed to be a herringbone stitch around here, but I actually did a modified cross stitch because I couldn't get the herringbone stitch to really look right. And then for the middle, I just did stitches radiating from a hole in the centre. I used the same backing fabric for this one. This is, all, again, cotton interlock with fusible interfacing on the back, a very lightweight one. But the circle I made out of offcuts. So the offcuts that I showed you to do with the journals that I want to make, these ones, I cut them down again after I put together the pieces for the journals, and then played with them to make this shape. And the inspiration for this exercise, which we do with Lisbeth Dane of Dragenkunst, was to think about the porcelain that is beautifully repaired in the Japanese tradition of Kintsugi, where you put the pieces back together but you use real gold to fill in the cracks. And that kind of honours the use of that particular piece of porcelain, which someone originally would have made. And I love that idea where something that may have been discarded becomes beautiful again through the art of mending and repair. So that's what this represents. These are the pieces of machine-stitched layered scraps that I showed you. And then to cover the cracks, because I put it together like a jigsaw puzzle, to cover the cracks I've used gold ribbon. I didn't have gold thread, which was what was recommended. So I used some gold ribbon that I had, and then used an ochre coloured cotton thread to stitch them down. And that's called couching. When you do that, you can do that with thread or yarn or fabric to couch it down. So I really enjoyed that too, and I thought the concept was really lovely. And then I've got my page ready to put it onto. So again, I'll use double-sided tape for that. I'll make my week 19 label for that, and then I'll put double-sided tape on the back and stick it into the page. Probably unsurprisingly, I've started another art journal. You've seen the wetlands journal that I completed, which I shared something about in the last video. And I keep getting this mail from the conservation group that I support, and it keeps inspiring me. And this one will be about soil health and seed resilience. The next one is in the pipeline too, because yesterday I picked up my mail and there's another one from the same group. So I haven't opened it yet to find out what it's about. And I guess while I keep being inspired, I'll keep doing it. So just check the last video if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's a journal called Wetlands. I've been invited by Kelly of Book and Paper Arts to do a guest presentation, and I have done it on the new project. So I'm sorry to be annoying, but I'm not going to be sharing this in detail now. I will show you this page because this is one that I started after I completed making the video. So this is one of the pages. I've done a similar technique to what I did in the Wetlands journal. I've used tea bag. I've used images from the actual publicity material and text also. And there wasn't as much in the way of pictures in this particular mail out. So I'm having to think of ways to use quite a lot of text pages. So I tore one and stuck it down here to maybe represent a tree trunk or something like that. And I'll stitch that down, haven't quite decided how yet. I've started a bit of stitching. I've done some feather stitch and some plant-like shapes with back stitch and chain stitch. And I'll just keep going with that until I think it's done. The last book I did with slip knot binding, and I'll probably do the same thing. So I'm keeping the space on this edge free for the binding, but also because I like to reinforce the pages with an extra layer of paper. This is reasonably robust, but you know, I just want to be sure, because slip knot binding, you make holes in it and then you pull it and you don't want to tear it. So that's the plan at this stage, and I'll let you know when the video is being aired on Kelly's channel, and I'll link you to it so that you can see my process, because I go through the process of creating the layouts for the very first pages for this art journal, and then there's a link to another video that I've done about how to do the stitching if you're not certain about how to do that. It is a different ball game stitching through paper than it is through cloth. So even if you're an experienced stitcher, if you haven't done anything with paper, it might be worth your having a look also. So stay tuned and I'll let you know what's going to happen. I have done 3 pages, but that's all I'm going to show you.